7 o'clock. Tell me when you're ready. All right, good evening, everyone. This is a regular meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay, good evening. I'd like to welcome you and open this regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen for Tuesday, October 15th, 2019. Please rise, join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. One quick housekeeping thing before we go on. Oh no, it's there. I thought there was something missing, but no, we have it on here. Okay, great. First order of business correspondence, anything late breaking, okay? Public comments. Everybody here is pretty much on the agenda, so I doubt there'll be comments. All right. Next order of business is approval of the regular minutes of September 17th, 2019. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll
make the motion.
All right.
Approve the minutes.
Okay. Are there any questions, comments, corrections? All right, hearing none, those in favor? Aye. That motion carries. First Selectman's report. I don't have a lot of new stuff to report. Paving is underway on Knollwood, Governor's Lane, intersection up there. One of the things they did is narrow the roadway somewhat. It's still pretty wide, but it provides a little bit more lawn space for the neighbors, but it was originally designed up there to have a circle, traffic circle, which was never put in, but that's why when you go up and you get to the intersection of, I think it's Spring Hill, it's wider than an average expressway, so that's been straightened around and should slow down traffic quite a bit too. Aside from that, there's just routine things going on. CCM, I'm a board member of Connecticut Conference of Municipalities. We are beginning our annual legislative planning session. CCM lobbies the state legislature every year for changes in laws that would help municipalities, or at least to stop passing laws that hurt municipalities, you know, like unfunded mandates, things like that. That process got underway, and as we go through those things, I will keep you guys informed. Also would like to inform my colleagues, the annual CCM convention is December 3rd, and you are welcome to and highly encouraged to attend. It's held at Foxwoods every year. A lot of people make a night out of it, you know, which is on your own, of course, but it's a very, very informative all-day session. The seminars, the instructional seminars that CCM provides are extremely helpful. I have found that the educational materials are very useful, you know, and I apply directly to the job all the time. So wanted to make you guys aware of that because, of course, we do have an election in the meantime, assuming we're still here. We will, you know, I would like to invite you to that. I would also invite Board of Finance and Planning and Zoning members because it is, there's a lot of educational materials that they could benefit from as well. That's it. Do you guys have any other comments? Nope. Okay. Paul? Nope. All right. Moving on. First order of business is consideration of refunds as a result of overpayment of taxes. So I'll put a motion on the floor that we authorize repayment of taxes, refunds in the amount of $7,220.92 as recommended by the tax collector and SCACO, dated October 15th, 2019. And the documentation shows basically overpayment, mostly on vehicles and things like that. Any questions? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Hearing no further comments, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that carries. Item number 2, consideration of Parloa playground equipment. This was anticipated in the annual capital budget. It was, as you guys know, in the budget process, it was removed from the capital list and put into the operating budget on capital non-recurring. There is a line for it, although we do have to go through, we don't have to go through a town meeting, but we do have to go through Board of Finance to release those funds. And we are, I wasn't going to do this till later because it can't be installed until the spring anyway. However, if we move this along now, there is a grant available that offsets the cost by a little over $14,000. And I'd like to turn the floor over to Eileen Earl so she can explain what the equipment she wants to buy and how the grant works.
Basically, the grant is through Game Time Equipment, and it's a percentage off based on how much you purchase. So if it's a certain amount, it could be 30%, 40%, or 50%, based on what we want to do, which is replacing both playground equipment that are there, because originally we were just going to do one piece, but with this savings, we can do both pieces. And we feel that both pieces are needed to be replaced. And this is the company that we have at McCower, the equipment. And here are some color pictures that might give you a better idea of what we're doing. But if you're looking at the playground, this would be like if your back is to South Street. And this is the replacing the big equipment and then the smaller piece. And then we thought in time we would put picnic tables in between and make it one big wood carpet, safety, take out the very old merry-go-round. And then these are just up and close pictures of the actual equipment, and this is the color scheme that we would like to have there, which is nice and bright. And
This is all what, PVC?
it's a metal piping and plastic, very similar to what's there, just upgraded. And we made sure that if we took out slides, we replaced it with the same amount of slides, because that seems to be popular with the older kids. It has this little rock climbing wall, which is good, and it added different features in the toddler. This is a 2 to 5 year old playground, and this is 5 to 12. The other thing we also did, we have no tubes in any of the play structure. It's all open, so it's very visible for parents to watch their kids, as well as Parloa Park, there's no tubes for people to hide in. So that's been a safety issue, and we've had some vandalism and different things in there, yeah. I don't want to go into details, but.
These railings here, you can't get your head.
Nope, this would all meet the certified
Okay.
playground inspection. It would get installed by my staff and a local contractor, but you can't open a playground until it gets to be certified by a
And
certified
electric is all
playground.
wood chips?
All wood chips, what we presently use now as well. I just thought this was an opportunity for us to get updated equipment. The equipment that's at Parloa is probably like 25 years old.
Yeah.
And was done by the J.C.'s back then.
Mm-hmm.
And this will replace both pieces, and we could really add to Parloa as a feature.
Eileen, in this one picture of the stairs, the other stairs has spindles on it, but the stairs doesn't. Can you just double check on that, because it probably should have spindles on this. That's the back page. Never mind.
Okay.
See, the higher one has the spindles, but I'm sure that requires spindles.
This one here?
It looks different than that.
It's the toddler one.
Is this the older kid one?
That's the older kid one. This is the toddler one.
Ah.
This is it.
Yes,
That's
see here,
it.
just check with ADA or the building inspector, make sure that that doesn't require
the full,
spindles like the other stair does.
yeah, but this
See
is
that?
probably the handrail to get up.
I understand that, but kids can go through there
Okay.
versus
Yep.
this. Okay?
Yep.
And just
Eileen, basically, this represents what, roughly about a 29% discount, right?
Yes, it's almost a 30% discount that we are able to get.
Not bad.
So it's also part of, and I do have copies for you to give for you to, but it's the copy of the master plan that the commission approved at their last meeting in September, which we've gone to planning and zoning, and maybe new copies to review so you guys could approve it at your next meeting.
The Mylon or the Groom plan, right?
Yes, and part of their recommendation is to replace the playground equipment at.
What was in the budget for this? Do you know?
I had 32,000. and it's a 35, so.
Yeah, it's. Okay,
right.
do you guys have any other questions?
No.
I'll just take my,
Opportunity with a grant like that?
Yep.
Why not?
Yeah, grant, it's basically a sales incentive, but we'll take it. All right.
well, I was gonna use the company, like they're the ones that have been designing it throughout the
Yeah.
years. The original quote was from this company as well,
Yeah.
so.
Okay. All right, I'll put a motion on the floor that we approve the game time proposal to replace playground equipment at Parloa Park in the amount not to exceed $35,945.66 and forward to Board of Finance for their review and approval.
Second?
Any further conversation? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that carries. Eileen, we'll have, I know that this says we have to actually place the order by the end of October.
We just have to have a signed contract, like I just sent
Yeah.
it to them, so.
I'll talk to you,
Yeah,
I'll talk to you about that tomorrow.
Okay.
Because we might have to ask enough Board of Finance members to come and move that along, because
Okay.
this is in the capital non-recurring budget, so it shouldn't be a problem. All right, thank you very much.
I'll leave you these, just to give to them.
Moving on to item number 3, consideration of a fire truck. Did you guys just get a fire truck?
We just delivered you one, right?
And
Or is it here?
It's here?
It's here. It fit.
Oh, did you drive it out?
Huh?
Did you drive it out?
No.
Oh, I'm just,
Okay.
Okay, so we know that this is coming up. You guys gave us some information. We have some test reports. I will be very honest with you. I have not had time to look through this. You know, we've got the NFPA standards. So basically what I wanted to do is have an opportunity for my colleagues and I to just ask questions about the specs for what you need, the timelines, what the longer range plans are, that kind of thing. So let me start out and ask you this: the current drivetrain and chassis is 10 years. It's like 11 years old, right? Okay. What kind of shape is that in?
That's in good shape. That we maintain every year it's out.
I had a
Let me
significant
throw
amount of work
another
done
curve
last
on
year
that
though.
one there too.
There was,
Now, that includes the pump behind it too, that chassis?
yeah. We did, we had transmission.
I had, in the past 14 months, I had transmission problems that had to be addressed, I had motor problems that had to be addressed, I had multiple issues with the air that had to be addressed. And it's, you know, it's something that's expected with a truck of that age, but it's at that age where it's experiencing more and more of those wear and tear issues.
Well, what were the motor and transmission things? Because I come from Detroit, so I understand a lot of this.
There was an issue with the
Detroit guy.
electronic transmission not shifting properly.
Okay, that's the computer then.
The computer had to get replaced. There was an issue with the interface between the transmission and the motor for the Jake brake. That required, excuse me, that required more electrical repairs. The air brake system, the air dryer has been replaced 3 times, the air compressor has been replaced once, the air governor has been replaced twice, and I've had so far 2 of my ABS sensors have gone bad. We had to replace all of them because they were all the same age, so they were all subject to the same problem. That's the past 14 months with that powertrain.
But, you know, if you compare it to routine maintenance, that's all part of it for a chassis of that size. I would say, because, you know, trucks like that, you know, you do run into those problems.
Right, for a vehicle that age and older, that's something that you expect to run into, but we're in that time period right now.
Was that truck sized properly for the ladder at the time?
At the time, yes.
At the time.
What the size is that ladder?
That ladder has a 90-foot reach.
Okay. What's wrong with You know, I've been hearing all sorts of rumors. The rumors I've been hearing is pneumatics or hydraulics. Also, I've heard that there's stress on the ladder itself.
So what caused it to fail its annual inspection this year, because it's failed 2 years in a row, what caused it to fail this year is the hydraulic valve body, which is the part of the hydraulic system that operates the aerial device. It's bypassing fluid, so when the controls to lift and lower the ladder and extend and retract the ladder, when you let go of them, they're supposed to return to the neutral position and stop the movement of the ladder. They're not doing that. So along with that, there was a violent vibration that developed within the turntable of the device. The aerial boom mounts to a turntable, which is what allows the boom to spin 360 degrees. The turntable mounts to the chassis. So this vibration is starting to cause wear on the hydraulic swivel within the turntable mount. The hydraulic swivel hasn't been made, that model has not been made since the mid-90s, and the valve body itself has not been made since the mid-90s. At that point, when the manufacturer was updating their designs, that's when they stopped making it. They haven't been able to get those parts. They tried piecing together, they tried a solution of piecing together parts of a new valve body with old components and vice versa to make it work last year, when we failed last year. They were unsuccessful at doing that. The best combination of parts that they could come up with, it still has a violent vibration. They told us when they gave us the truck back after having it for 6 weeks, this is as good as it's gonna be. We don't know what's wrong with it. We can't figure out why.
This was Sutphen?
This was Sutphen.
Are there any independent repair centers that specialize in this kind of apparatus that you could get another opinion?
So there is one in Connecticut. It's called 5 Star. They're up in East Hartford. They are actually they are territorially the Sutphen service center for this part of Connecticut.
Okay.
And a couple of the surrounding states.
So they're like they're an authorized Sutphen?
They're like, yeah, it's like they're part of the Sutphen franchise.
Okay.
They were our primary service center, as anything Sutphen related gets diverted to them.
Okay.
Because of the poor service that we were receiving there with both this truck and Engine 5, which we took delivery of about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
We had to go through a whole proceedings with the Sutphen Corporation to get ourselves legally removed from our obligation to deal with 5 Star.
Oh, you mean, so guys were going to 5 Star, but they were not
Correct.
performing? So
They were not performing, the quality of their work and the time that it took to do it were creating problems for us.
And they're the only,
And they are
only
the
independent center?
authorized dealer and service center in Connecticut. So when we contacted Sutphen corporate and said, this isn't working, we need a better solution, they made up a contract, if you will, saying that we can deal directly with the Sutphen East plant, which is out in Pennsylvania. And so now that requires the truck to get driven 3 hours out to Pennsylvania, 3 hours back, so we lose a whole day in travel for that.
That's a lot of miles, too.
A lot of miles in fuel, which they bill us for. There's a copy in that information I gave you with all the service records, and one of the things is that they billed us for the fuel for driving the truck back here for us the last time it was out there. They seem to have the same problems with fixing or even addressing any repairs in a timely manner. They don't reply to emails, they don't reply to phone calls. The truck was out there for 6 weeks in the beginning of the last calendar year. It took them a month to return any of my phone calls regarding the status of the truck. And I told them, I said, I don't want it done fast, I want it done right, but logistically I need an idea of how long these repairs are gonna take. Are we talking a week, are we talking 2 months? I just need to know so we can plan for our operations. And they said, we've never we've never had to perform this type of repair, we really don't know.
So why do we deal with Sutphen? No,
Well, that's-
I don't know, I.
And that was the reason that we stopped dealing with them, the Engine 6 projects, that we just took delivery of. We switched manufacturers because of all these
What'd you switch to?
issues. We're buying Seagrave now. And their service center is right over in Brewster, New York, and it's been a day and night difference with the service that we receive, both from Hudson Valley Fire and from the Seagrave factory.
So there's no other independent contractor or service people that can work on that hydraulic system?
Other than Five Star.
Other, well, the
Our-
either Five
our
Star
options-
or the company in Pennsylvania.
Our options right now is the manufacturer at their satellite facility in Pennsylvania, or going back to Five Star.
Why?
Well, you didn't have good results with either one of
Either
them.
one.
I wouldn't even recommend go back to
Well,
either one of them.
my concern now is trying to find, even if I could find another fire apparatus mechanic that's willing to work on it, the parts that they need, they aren't available. Because we went to the manufacturer themselves to try to have the work done, and they're saying the reason that it can't be done is because we haven't made the parts since the mid-90s.
A lot of the issue with that truck, that was the first time a refurb was tried with a Sutphen. Tom Sutphen did it himself out in what was called Tom's Toy Box in Ohio. Nothing was ever written down. That truck, when Tom Sutphen passed away, the truck passed away with him, because everything was in his head on how that truck was built. He never wrote anything down.
Really?
The Pennsylvania
You pay $1 million
shop,
for a truck and they don't have an actual plan?
He had no, it was the first time they tried it.
the Pennsylvania facility that was trying to work on our truck said that they had to consult the main plant out in Ohio where this whole project was done 12 years ago. And they found in dealing with the Ohio plant that there was no schematics for the vehicle, there was no mapping of hydraulic lines, no list of parts and components. It was, it was one of the first ones ever done, and it was, there was no record keeping, so there's nothing for anybody to try to go and research now to find out anything about it. We have an owner's manual pertaining to the powertrain, the cab and chassis, because that was manufactured as a new piece of equipment. So I have those owner's manuals, but pertaining to the work that was done to mate up the old and new parts, there's absolutely nothing in print or on a computer to reference. And the only thing I have for a owner's manual and a parts manual for the 42-year-old portion is approximately 15-page, typewriter document from the late 70s when that was originally built. There's no thorough information on it.
There's nothing connecting the two pieces.
Is the valve body on the refurbished truck, or is it the valve body stuff on the ladder?
It's on the, it's in the
It's the
turntable.
It's the turntable portion of the.
So that was with the ladder.
That's all. That all got transferred over.
To the ladder, so that was,
We
none
had
of
the
that was
option
new on the truck.
when the remount was done. And if you look at some other manufacturers, there's a few out there that will remount a ladder. It's generally not an accepted practice. There's a couple of manufacturers that will do it, not necessarily with a Sutphen, but they'll do it with their own brand. And they'll reuse the aerial boom portion and the bucket, but the hydraulics get replaced in their entirety. So everything from the PTO pump, the hydraulic reservoir, all the lines, all the pistons, they're all brand new, and the only thing that you're truly reusing is the big piece of metal that makes up your boom.
So basically, you're rebuilding it as new
Right.
from some other
So-
manufacturer.
Right, and so, for example, the aerial scope brand, they will take your old aerial scope ladder boom and remount it, but it has all new components on it, and it's completely certified to the most current NFPA standards. This ladder, when it was done, and I didn't have a lot of involvement with the project back then, so I don't know what the reason was, that we didn't replace hydraulics back then, but I still have original hydraulic cylinders on this vehicle that have been subject to repairs. I've got original hydraulic hoses on it. So this ladder never got upgraded to the current standard. It doesn't have any of the electrical safeties built into it that the standard requires. The standard says that it's supposed to have an interlock system. Any aerial device has to have an interlock system that does a couple of things safety-wise. One, it won't let you operate the aerial device unless the stabilizer jacks are properly set. This truck still operates today the way it did 40 years ago, where it doesn't have that.
So you can extend the ladder?
You can
without having
operate
to
the ladder
stabilize it
without
up?
your jacks set up.
Which is dangerous.
Which is dangerous. You wouldn't, intentionally go and do that, but, if you didn't properly stabilize it, your jacks might be out and down, but if you didn't put enough weight on them, you could tip the truck over. So the electronic interlocks are supposed to prevent that.
They have sensors in them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Additionally, there's, this interlock system stops you from lowering the boom down and crushing the cab. If you had the ladder spun around 180 degrees and you're operating over the front of the truck, it'll stop the ladder from crushing the cab. It'll stop the ladder from crushing the fire body on the side of the truck if you're operating at a low angle. This truck never got any of those updates. So it never was
But in
compliant.
the past 42 years, since we had that truck, you never crashed or tipped it over?
There's some damage on the roof where it's tapped a couple times. Thankfully, we never had a significant incident where it was in danger of tipping over. It has struck the cab a couple of times, but yeah, so this was truly just we're gonna take this old part here and put it on this new part here, and none of the applicable updates were ever done.
So, let me just go back to your original statement.
Sure.
There's other repair facilities, but they're not Sutphen, you're saying?
Right.
And could basically put new hydraulics on the thing, current specs, okay, whatever safety mechanisms you want onto this chassis. And the question is, at this time, what are these types anticipated costs? And the question that comes down to it, maybe it's best to put the whole mechanism, the hydraulics in the ladder.
So the last time we looked into it was in preparation for this past year's budget presentation. And the Sutphen Corporation told us at that point, they said, one, we don't recommend it. It's something that when Tom Sutphen was still alive and he owned the company, that was something that he experimented with. There was a handful of them done, but it's not something that we regularly do, and we don't recommend it for basically because of the issues that we're running into with this. They said you constantly run into roadblocks with matching old and new. They said that if you really want to do it, it'll cost you somewhere in the neighborhood of $750,000 to do that.
To put a new ladder on?
To put a new ladder on it.
And the hydraulics.
The problem at that point is for that truck, and they won't give you the truck back unless the entire truck, bumper to bumper, top to bottom, is NFPA compliant. They have to take the truck portion of it, the cab and chassis and powertrain, and make that compliant to the new standard as well. So the newest 1901 and 1911 standards have been significantly updated with a lot of safety things like NFPA, they identify what size seats you have to have for our crews to sit in because of the size of a firefighter in their gear with an air pack behind them. They have to have seats of a certain size, seat belts have to be longer. Basically, they said the entire inside of the cab has to get overhauled. So you're stripping the whole cab down to a shell and replacing everything and using a 12-year-old shell. The entire electrical system has to be updated to go through, it has to have a new multiplex system to operate everything electronic. The vehicle's onboard computer, if you will, that's the brain of the truck. This truck doesn't have the newest version of that, so that has to get updated. So anything powertrain related that's not compliant to current standards has to get updated. So by the time you're done with that project, you've basically replaced everything except the walls of your cab and your frame rails and your motor. So the last time we looked into that, they said, you're looking at a year to do that project. And at that time, $750,000. And they said, and with that said, we really don't want to take on that project.
That was something.
That was something.
Yeah, but I don't know how you feel about it, but just me sitting right here, I'd like to get some other third party in, because I've gone on the internet when I first heard about this. There are places that, I'm sure you know about them too, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and even out west, they'll totally retrofit. They said, we can do anything relative to hydraulics and ladders. The question is, how much is it gonna cost? That's the
And
bottom
the
line.
concern that comes with that is that while they might mechanically be able to do the work to the truck, you don't have the factory support to fall back on down the road if there's a problem.
At this point, I wouldn't have any confidence in something whatsoever.
Right, and and quite honestly, that's why we stopped buying them with our last purchase. But, so there might be a fire truck mechanic or service center that would take on a project like that, but with it not being a major manufacturer, if you have an issue with any part of that truck, 5 years, 10 years down the road, they're not a major manufacturer, so are they still in business? What abilities do they have? What kind of factory support can they get if they need parts down the road? Those are all the concerns with taking on a project like that.
And also with going as far as Midwest, how are we gonna get it back and forth if they don't have some place around here that can service it?
I'm just looking at the broad picture
Yeah,
right now.
you gotta do the due diligence on every aspect.
My last conversation with Sutphen, he was gonna look and see if they had a truck from the mid-90s that they could harvest parts from, and I'm like, that's,
You're not any further.
That was the best option they
That
could
was-
come up with.
Yeah, no.
And I work in Westport, and we have the same truck that we have here, same vintage, I think it's a year or two newer, basically a sister truck to this, and we have all the same issues.
Really?
Exactly the same issues with the hydraulics. And ours has been updated to some of the newer safety features, and it still has the issues. And, at work, same thing, no records of any of the work that's done to it, no wiring.
How do they comply with federal regulations?
Well, they didn't, that's what we're looking at.
Jeez.
I reached out to my contact at Sutphen East, which is their satellite facility in Pennsylvania, and I've had pretty good luck getting answers from their service manager, but he's also told me, in dealing with him, he said, I wish I could come up with something better for you. He goes, there's no answers from the factory, we're trying to make this up as we go. He's been good about trying to make us whole, but when I spoke with him about the thought of reusing the truck and getting a new ladder, he said, I'm not the guy to talk to about that. Here's the contact information for someone out at the main plant in Ohio. They would have the answer. So in that packet that I gave you, I had a printout of the email that I sent out to Ohio. And I asked them some technical questions about, is it possible to do it? Is it something that the company is willing to take on? What's the cost associated with it? What's the timetable? Will it completely comply with the current NFPA standard? Is there any opportunity to put a different size ladder on the truck? Because they do manufacture some different size and style ladders now that would benefit this town, having one of those different aerial devices. The question is, will it mate up with that chassis? And so I sent that email to him. He didn't reply. I tried calling him 3 times. He won't reply. That's what we're getting from them.
you know, from what you're saying, it's really not cost effective to even touch that truck.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you gotta retrofit everything, the cab, you know, and then you still got the old chassis and the old.
Right, so
So
we're,
when you were here in the spring, we were talking about different options to finance it. Lease, buy, I mean, have you updated, I haven't seen this either, so have you provided any of that information to the board? And, you know, have you looked at possibly buying a demo truck? You know, do we have the same issue with a new ladder truck fitting into the firehouse that it, or does this truck, a ladder has to be custom
the aerial
made?
bay itself is fine, the only
Yeah,
issue,
it's got a taller.
yeah, the only issue we have in town is the 11-4 bridge.
What?
So
yeah.
some of the,
Yeah.
some of the things, I've been shopping around to see what's out there, you know, for short-term and long-term solutions to this. So right now, I've been unsuccessful in finding a truck that will, A, fit under the bridge, B, as we said, while our current apparatus bay height-wise accommodates the truck we have, lengthwise is still an issue because there's another truck that parks behind it. It's a, you know, double-ended bay.
Right.
So I can't go any bigger lengthwise than what I have now. And besides the bridge, I do still, you know, we're in a somewhat of a rural setting where I deal with, you know, low tree limbs trying to get into people's driveways and so on. Anything that I've been able to find, you know, moderately used, either, you know, doesn't fit into one of those criteria.
Our
The other
current
issue
truck
we
goes
have-
under that bridge?
What's that? The current one does. And that's, quite honestly, that's why we
Was the road feed or
Right,
something?
and that's why the design of the apparatus is so important. So there's two basic designs for an aerial type vehicle. You have one where the turntable assembly is mounted right behind the cab, and the ladder stretches back towards the back of the chassis, which is what we have. And there's a rear-mounted turntable where the ladder pivots off the back of the chassis and it extends out over the front of the truck. But to do that, the overall travel height is significantly higher because the ladder bedded has to go over the top of the cab. So anything
Where the
so-
bucket's on the, below the.
Right, so
Back
anything
end.
rear mounted that I've found won't make it under the bridge, and we're gonna run into tree limbs and low overhangs. So operationally, a rear mounted truck isn't operationally friendly for our community.
Well, not to say that we don't have a lot of residential, and there's, the only thing that's really on the other side of the bridge is the town garage. And
Right.
there is some commercial.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But, I mean, can you go down Nashville Road and?
sure.
So that's,
I mean-
that's the challenge, is where we do, and yes, we can go that way, but the largest reason I have to go under that bridge is to go and get fuel. And the truck is too long to make that turn, so I have to go down to Plantation Court and turn around and come back up. So, and like, you know, to give a
Yeah.
comparison, so Danbury's older ladder trucks were rear mounted, they couldn't go under the Lake Ave Bridge. They've switched to the mid-mounted style so that now they can fit under the Lake Ave Bridge. Same idea.
That's even lower, isn't it?
Yeah, so for the height restriction, we're limited to, we need a mid-mounted aerial device.
All right, and again, I haven't looked at that information. How did we get, at budget time last year, we were talking about 1.3, and now we're up to 1.7?
So the prices that we get from the manufacturer initially are what they speculate until they sit down with us. They try to give you a worst-case scenario. Through the process of sitting down with them and developing a set of specs where they see exactly what type of features you're looking for in the truck, and, you know, this being no different than the pumper that we just spec'd out, we're looking for a very basic vehicle. It's not gonna have a ton of chrome on it, it's not gonna have, you know, every bell and whistle, it's gonna have the, you know, the functions that we need to, you know, perform our duties at fire and rescue incidents. So once they see exactly what we're trying to build, they can give us a more, a closer estimate. So last year, the final estimate that we got from Seagrave for what we spec'd out on paper was 1.55. The current, to take that same spec that we had then And their estimate at this point, after going through the whole process with us, is 1.6.
Are you looking at other manufacturers? Because, you know, I know you guys, I know, you for the longest time, you were Sutphin, the other guys on the other side of town, they were Pierce. You know, I'm at the point of saying it's an automobile, it's an automobile. They all build
Right.
good ones today. you know?
Yeah.
And,
So we, you know, we attempted to standardize the fleet for a variety of reasons.
sure, but we're not gaining anything. it seems.
Since 1977, we had very good luck with the Sutphin Tower. And, you know, 7 or 8 years ago, when we started speccing out Engine 5, we've had good luck with Sutphin for a ladder truck, we'll buy a pumper from them. Around that time, that's when the owner of this family business passed on, and it's, you know, not a customer-friendly corporation to work with now. So we elected to say, okay, if we can't standardize the fleet, then we need to go out and shop around and see what's best for what we're trying to accomplish firefighting-wise. So that's how we landed with the Seagrave brand. Their maintenance is done right over in Brewster, New York. Very easy access to get to them. They've made themselves very available to us on the sales and the service aspect.
Seagrave is who Stony Hill's been using for a while too, right?
Stony Hill's been using Pierce.
Oh, Pierce,
Both reputable manufacturers. There's a ton of Seagraves out there. There's a ton of Pierces out there. The big thing with an aerial device is that every aerial device, design has its own little, they put their own little spin on things. So trying to find what can be built structurally and, taking into account approach angle on intersections, driveways, the height, the length, and what the truck can do, tactically at an incident scene. That's where we arrived with the Seagrave aerial scope as our recommendation, because the truck that we have now, tactically, works very well in this town. So, for us, there's really not a lot that we need to change with the type of truck we have. We just need to find a different manufacturer that makes something close to it, and that's what we found with the Seagrave scope aerial.
Would you still consider taking a look at third and fourth parties? Take a look at this existing piece of apparatus to see what kind of quotation you might get for a total new ladder and new hydraulic system based upon new parts and then retrofitting it in.
To put it on the old truck?
No,
I wouldn't.
I understand $750,000. That's not the point. The point is, the town right now, and I know all of you are taxpayers, so you can understand this. With a new police station, with 2 new schools, people are saying, let's keep this town affordable. I'm looking for perhaps an option, if it's an option. Maybe it's not an option. Maybe
We have to explore it.
Maybe as soon as we get some sort of quotations, we'll just scrap it, throw it in a circular file and say, it's not an option.
The other thing to consider, and this kind of comes into play because I believe it's this coming year, we're due for our ISO evaluation. And the fire insurance rates are based on the town's ISO score or based on their evaluation. So there's a variety of things that ISO looks at. They look at everything from a dispatch center to the water system in town, how much of your town has hydrants and how much doesn't have hydrants. They look at the number of pumpers and aerial devices you have. But the other thing that they take into consideration with that score is the age, the maintenance, and the compliance to the NFPA standards. So what we've kind of gotten ourselves into with this truck now, because of its age, is we're in that situation where they're looking at us saying, you have a truck that doesn't comply with NFPA, and it's 42 years old. They don't see the, 2007 versus 1977. They see 1977 red flags go up. So what potentially would happen is if we were able to find a third-party vendor that could acquire a aerial device, I don't know that they'd be able to purchase that from the Suffolk Corporation to then mount it themselves, but if they could, we get ourselves into this situation of, down the road with our next evaluation, okay, so now your truck is a 2007, it's 15 years old, it's 20 years old, so you're constantly putting yourself in a situation where, the taxpayers pay long-term based on higher insurance rates. So, it's one of those things where cost is going to be incurred either on the front end or on the back end, and where we want to put
I
it.
would still like to see us have that in front of us, just to confirm, this board right here, of saying, okay, this is the best for the town in the long run, no question about it. I'm not denying you a truck, believe me.
I do have the maintenance facility that does all my preventive maintenance on all my other vehicles. First line emergency services, they've done very good work for us, and they do take on projects from time to time. I'll contact them tomorrow and see if that's something that A, would they be willing to look into it, and B, is it something that mechanically is feasible?
I agree with Paul and Rich simultaneously. My wonder, though, is knowing that we have to get a truck, and that's got to happen. And also knowing that as Stony Hill gets built out, the day is coming, there's got to be another one up there. My interest in looking at the cost of refurbishing that with the new ladder is, would it make sense to have that as an emergency backup? That's, so it doesn't go out at every call, but if you've got apparatus that's out and you've got another call, it's used occasionally. So that may, and like Paul said, that might not make sense. It might just be you get whatever you can for it and get it out of there. But I would like to explore that.
Okay. I can certainly make that phone call tomorrow, and I'll see what I can find out on that front, and I'll let you know as soon as I can get an answer on that.
Now, with regard to other brands, you said Stony Hill, normally they run with Pierce?
Yeah, they've purchased Pierce, for as long as I've been a firefighter in this town. A reputable company, there's a lot of them out there, they have a good reputation around the country.
Do they have service locally?
They have service through the Firematic company in, I believe, Rocky Hill, that's the local Pierce Service Center.
Okay.
See, the strange thing is, I share your concern. I went on the internet and I looked at used, aerials, and I saw like a 2004, I think it was La France, 100-foot for $200,000. I said, what's wrong with it?
Now, with that said, I can tell you why it's that cheap. Because somewhere else where I'm a firefighter, we have a ladder truck from that era, and it's American La France, and American La France is a name that has been in business and out of business 3 or 4 times over the recent
several
past.
brands out there.
And so this particular truck, we're in the same situation with it. It's difficult to get parts, and there's no factory support because there's no longer an American La France factory. And that's one of the things that we feel confident with the Seagrave brand. Like I said, when we went to them for the pumper, Seagrave's been in business continuous in the United States since 1933. They started out in Detroit, and they've since moved to Wisconsin. But they're a continuous running business. They've never had a break in service.
Who do they buy their engines from? Cummins Diesel? You think?
Most fire truck manufacturers now are using Cummins. Pierce will use a Cummins or a Detroit diesel. Pretty much everybody else is using the Cummins motor with the Allison electronic transmission, and it's just one of those things that it's been a proven motor, and in trucks all over, whether it's a fire truck, a dump truck, a city bus, it's just it's a well-established company, and it's a combination that works. That's what most manufacturers are using now.
Okay.
All right, here's my opinion. You guys need a new truck, or maybe a demo, if you can go out and look at a demos, if there's any demos, I don't know if there are any out
I'm on the
there.
internet every day looking.
Okay, so
I
that's,
would love to be able to come to you guys and say, hey, I found something that we can get a really good deal on that'll meet our needs.
all right, so that would be number one. Number two is look at other brands of trucks. I know you're set on the Seagrave, but
Mhm.
what is the difference of prices for some of these other brands? I mean, are we
So-
talking
So
50,000, or are we
To
talking
do a-
200,000? You know, if
to
we're
do a-
talking 50,000, that's peanuts when you're talking.
to do a
One point seven.
mid-mounted aerial device with a bucket on it to replace, replacing with a, vehicle similar to what we have now. I've shopped around with 4 different manufacturers over the past year and a half, and they're all right around the same price. An emergency one manufactured vehicle is 1.5. A Pierce mid-mount tower is 1.55-ish, depending on what features you put on it. A Seagrave aerial scope right now is 1.6.
All right, is
They're
any of
all-
those
they're all
numbers
right
in
in-
this literature here that you dropped off at the office?
The other manufacturers, no.
All right, we're gonna need that for future references, all right? So that would be, I mean, you guys gotta do a little homework, you know,
And I can
and I
actually-
think we can do some homework here. The other option is, when you came before, again, as I mentioned before, at budget time, you know, leasing,
There is
payment
the,
plans and things like that.
We
You
do
know,
have- I
we
do
need
have
that
some-
information again and
I do have
updated.
some of that information here with the newest rates, and so the comparison prices, I'll go about that 2 different ways so that we see it from both sides. Now that the town is on the HGAC purchasing program, which we use to buy the pumper,
That's the Houston Galveston one.
right, we can get the same type of pricing, no matter what manufacturer we buy. We can get the same pricing, so it eliminates the bidding wars between manufacturers and so on. So you're getting a, national fair market price. So I can go on that website and print out some basic numbers for you. What you don't get with those numbers is the tool mounting, the lettering, the add-ons after the truck itself is built. So you'll see those numbers are a bit lower, because that is for the shell of the vehicle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you can give her a
But I
lot,
can-
you
but I
can
can
give us a
show you
lot,
different
but you
manufacturers
gotta do
that
that
are-
with any truck.
Right.
Yeah,
And then
radio.
at the same time, I can talk to the sales reps from those 4, Sutphen being the 4th one. I'm not interested in doing business with them anymore, but I can certainly call them and get an estimate on the price. But basically, the 4 manufacturers that make something similar to what we have now, they're very close in price.
Okay.
Any aerial device in this day and age, you're looking at over $1 million.
Well, I can't see putting $750,000 on that old chassis. When you gotta refurbish everything but the engine and transmission
Right.
and drivetrain.
And they're already 11 years old.
Yeah.
The other
right.
thing that we talked about at the beginning of the year, so this is the most current pricing that we got from the Leasing 2 company, which is it's a government leasing program that it's like a lease to buy. So
Yeah.
you own the vehicle once it's paid for, but you can finance it with, however much money you want to put down, and then finance it over 2 years up to 15 years. And so you can see what the rates are. We contacted them 3 weeks ago and got that information from them, so that's all up to date right there pertaining to the Seagrave brand.
Yeah.
I can get the same thing for the other manufacturers, so you have a comparison.
Ask Bob to look at
Yeah.
this and compare it to the bonding and stuff
Can
too.
do you have this in email form too?
Yeah, I can forward it to you.
Send it to me and Bob Kozlowski.
Sure.
And, actually, send it to Deanne so she can share it with all.
Sure.
All
3 of us.
3 of us, plus Bob, plus Brad. Anybody else?
Sure, absolutely.
No, you know, it comes down now, my famous question is, what do we do with that old truck? To me, it's useless. There's no
Yeah.
money in it.
Put it in the museum?
So this is what, a lot of apparatus fall into this situation of they're too old for another department to want to buy to use it as a frontline piece or as a spare. Some departments might want to buy it as a spare to use it that 1 week out of the year when their truck is out for service. And they're not old enough for a collector to want to buy them. If you had an apparatus from the 70s or older, there's collectors that'll pay good money for it, but we fall into that uneasy age where there's just no market for them. We might be able to sell it through a fire apparatus wholesaler that'll sell it to somebody that has a similar truck that wants to harvest the good parts off of it. Or they might have the parts that this truck needs and the rest of their truck is failing, and between the two trucks they can make one. Those are options, but
Is there any idea what the truck might be worth?
What's that?
You have any idea what the truck might be worth?
So this is the best I can come up with, and it's not pretty. So we spoke in length with Harrison, New York, back towards the end of 2018, because they had a Sutphen tower just like ours. It was a little bit newer. It was a 2001 through and through. And they ran into the same problems dealing with Sutphen that we were. Maintenance issues, communication, all kinds of problems, and their truck was due to be replaced. So they switched to the Seagrave aerial scope. So when we test drove theirs and did all kinds of tests to see, will it do this the way we need it, will it do that the way we need it. I had a long conversation with their chief. What happened with your old Sutphen? What did you do with it? He said that when they talked to the Sutphen Corporation about it and said, would you take it on trade, and they offered them a ridiculously low number, because they said, well, it's not old enough for a collector to want it, and it's too old for anybody to use it, and it's really not worth anything to us as the manufacturer. It ended up being sold privately through a fire truck wholesaler for, I believe it was $18,000. That's the problem with the fire apparatus. It depreciates, and it's, because of the
Probably
last
took the
couple of
ladder off, the chassis
Yeah.
is worth more
The
than
last couple
having
of
the ladder on.
Scrap metal might be worth more.
Yeah.
The last couple of updates to the NFPA standards governing how a fire truck is built has changed so much of the vehicle having to be computerized and safeties built in, that it's really hard to take an old truck and make it new. So there's not really a market for it now.
I am all for safety, but what are the chances there are manufacturers that sit on the NFPA board?
That's where most of your standards come from.
Yeah, I know.
Because they say.
And they keep going up
Right,
every time we
and
talk
they'll
about
look
this.
at, okay, so this happens, how can we change design of a fire truck to prevent this from happening?
Okay.
And they're the ones that come up with all these things. And, and it really, it puts all of you and all of us in these uneasy situations, because the problem with NFPA is NFPA is not a law in the state of Connecticut.
Yeah.
In some states
Yeah.
it is
It's a
adopted.
standard, yeah.
It's a consensus standard.
Yeah.
But being that it's a nationally accepted consensus standard, in the court of law, you're compared to it. So, if there was an accident or a truck malfunctioned or somebody died as a result, lawyers don't know the fire service inside and out, so they look at NFPA because it's this nationally accepted standard. And even though Connecticut's not bound to follow it, there's other states that are, so it turns into, well, you knew that this standard was in place, why didn't you follow it?
Yeah. Well, I think you guys have your homework. I doubt that we're gonna wanna keep the old one even for a backup, but we would need a quote on refurbishing that.
Okay.
We need you to submit the full technical specs of what you're looking for. I don't know if that's in here or not.
That's not in that, I can get that for you.
Okay, so we, because we may need to go do a bid process, but we would also need to know the the HG group or any other co-op,
Right.
cooperative arrangements, but the full technical specs, even
Sure.
if we needed to put it out, I mean, we really do have to show the taxpayers that we're doing our due diligence. And then the leasing or other types of payment plans.
Sure.
So get that to us so we can move this along. And then last but not least, just keep trolling, looking for demos. I mean, the problem we have is that, you know, we knew that this truck needed to be replaced. You know, we didn't deal with it during the budget. I mean, personally, I thought we still had some time to deal with that because these things come up kind of on a long-range thing.
Right.
This thing has gotten bad in a hurry and has
Right.
left you guys in a lurch. And the lead time, like if we had a referendum next week and approved this truck, it's gonna take close to a year before you see it, and you're gonna need something.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm hoping that we get lucky and somebody ordered what you need and they say, oh,
Yeah.
our agency just went out of business, we don't
Yeah.
want this anymore.
And
You
that
know,
does pop up from time to time.
Yeah.
Fairfield got theirs that way.
I mean, we can, you know, we can move this along fast if an opportunity comes up. I mean, even if you had an opportunity, it's bound to be over $1 million. We'd have to go
Right.
through the bit to, yeah, but maybe we could have like an emergency town meeting to approve a deposit or something that's
Okay.
below that, so while we go through the process.
Right.
So, you know, our goal is to get you guys back in business and not have to be sitting there, you know, tinkering with a truck that doesn't work for a whole year.
Yeah.
You know, because that's what we're looking
The
at.
challenge that we're working with now is, you know, we don't have, because obviously there is a mechanical problem with the truck.
Yeah,
But the fact that we don't have a certificate that it's been inspected
sure,
for this year because of those problems,
yeah,
I can't fly that aerial device. But we're still sending the truck because of the other equipment that it carries.
yeah,
So now I have to send the truck there so that we have the saws and the fans and the ground
Right.
ladders and everything. But I need to position it out of the way so that when the mutual aid ladder truck arrives, there's
Yeah.
still room for it. And obviously, there's lead time built into
yeah,
that. We're adding 10 to 15 minutes if a mutual aid truck was available when I needed it. They're arriving, you know, so late into the game that
yeah,
it's really impossible to get them positioned in a spot where I can effectively use
of
them.
course. How fast can you get that information to us?
I will contact our service center up in Cromwell to see what his feeling is on doing that ladder replacement project. And then the information from Seagrave, Pierce, and E1 for the prices for other vehicles, I should be able to have that within a couple of days.
Okay. And in terms of priority, I think, you know, price, specs on the new truck, and then opportunity pricing, if anything, if we get lucky, is the priority, because I don't personally see, you know, like Rich says, I don't personally see that thing being used even as a backup, but, you know, it's something to consider.
Right.
But that's not the priority. Getting a newer, fully up to code replacement is the priority, so.
All right.
You can get that to us?
I'll work on that tomorrow, and I'll be in touch as soon as I have, at least, for the most part, I should be able to have those numbers within a couple of days.
Okay, well, we don't have another selectman meeting for a couple of weeks, so, you know, you don't have to stay up till 3 in the morning doing it, so.
All right.
All right,
You know, like I said, you know, we don't want to deny you anything like that, believe me. The three of us here just take a look at bottom line a little bit. That's what the residents really expect of us.
It's not only your department, it's, you know, the rest of the departments in town that we got to deal
Everybody.
with.
Like I said,
I totally understand.
We're all taxpayers here, you know.
Right.
You know, you gotta look for the best deal.
Oh, I understand that, and with that said, I mean, you know, we're trying to provide the best to the town as well, because our bottom line, when they look at us on their worst day, is that we can provide the services that they need when they call 911, so that, you know, so we're all trying to look out for what's best for the town.
I'm gonna throw
We're on the
something
same-
of course, we know.
I'll throw something out at you that
Sure.
I've been thinking about,
Uh-oh.
is that bridge.
Mhm.
You know, we're really hamstrung because of that bridge, because your building will accept just about anything for that big, roughly, okay? Has there been any legal things done by fire departments that you know of, have told railroads or the state
That's DOT, yeah.
or DOT saying, this is unsafe for the community, it's not, we cannot
Do you
work
know,
under.
and, you know, this is before I was so high in the pecking order when that bridge was replaced, but I
Yeah.
don't remember the specifics of it, but I do know that, you know, concern was voiced on behalf of us that, you know, trying to get equipment under there. You know, all my fire trucks right now fit under that bridge, but mutual aid apparatus from, you know, anywhere south of us might not fit under there, so it is a concern. Case in point, the Francis J. Clark Park fire, when we had to bring in mutual aid tankers, one of our ideal fill sites to refill those tankers couldn't be used because half of the tankers that were there wouldn't fit under that bridge. So it was communicated by the fire department to some authority at that time when there was consideration for raising the bridge, but, you know, most communities that have these, you know, low access issues, they end up having a spec out apparatus that'll
Well, I've
fit
seen
under it.
Newtown where the Newtown Bridge, if you recall, that was low until they decided to excavate. And now it's a normal underpass.
Right.
Oh, okay.
The problem is there, excavated here in the swamp.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
So it's
know.
flooded.
Well, then
It's already-
that would require.
But I think they did scrape the road down a little bit.
Yeah, that would require really a pumping system for that.
Yeah.
You know, I understand.
Well,
Well, your truck
if I-
fire there.
I remember right.
Remember.
Reading complained a lot that they didn't want the truck traffic going
Too
down.
bad.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
I know, but they were involved in it.
And the funny part about that is all those trucks just go down Nashville
The
Road,
road,
and drive
anyway,
right down
yeah.
to Reading anyway.
Yeah, that's exactly what they do.
Yeah.
We do have a new commissioner of the State Department of Transportation, Mr. Gilletti. I will be meeting with him sometime in the next month, and, you know, Mr. Redeker said, I said, when I first met him 10 years ago, I said, what are the chances we can get that bridge changed? And he said, not in our lifetime. But we got a new person. The problem is, the reason there was an opportunity is that if you raise that bridge, you have to raise the grade of the track a mile
Right.
in each direction, because you know, the locomotives can't pull. So it's not just the bridge, it's a big deal, so it never hurts to have the conversation.
Sure.
So, any, you guys have any other questions?
Wouldn't hurt in the other information on the cab-mounted turntable, what the height is.
Right, and that's actually something that we find that varies between manufacturers. So I can't remember the specific height, ground to turntable. The Seagrave aerial scope is the lowest of all of our options, which does keep that travel height significantly
Yeah.
lower. But yeah, I can, I'll get printouts of those for you.
Well, it might be in case we can't get the bridge raised.
You never know. It'll all live to be 150, who knows?
I always remember the funny story, I was talking to the chief of Danbury Fire Department about 4 or 5 years ago. And apparently, there were a couple of U-Haul trucks. And he says, the story goes that U-Haul is, don't go that way because you can't get it. So, and then coming back home, bam, you
Yeah.
know. So, well, you didn't tell me I couldn't go the other way.
That's absolutely true. That is true. That was a person who was moving their kids into college
Yeah.
in Westcon. And they blamed it on the U-Haul guy. I said, you didn't tell me I couldn't come the other way.
Yeah.
I saw a picture of that truck.
When Dolan first got front-end loader, cement trucks,
Yeah.
they drove into the bridge with one of those.
Yeah.
The guy, well, my old mixer went under,
Yeah.
the new mixer didn't go.
Remember that the barrel went out on one truck and the cab and chassis went out on the other tow truck.
Those were the front loaders.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so you guys have any other questions? All right, well, that completes it. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, guys.
You know, Brendan was here for a while, so it actually took 6 of you to sell some fire. But, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that carries. Thank you again for coming out.
Thank you.